The stranger at the door in the cold night. The wind howled outside the cabin like a hungry animal. Snow kept falling without pause. It was one of the coldest nights of the year. Daryl sat near the fire, wearing his old military coat, sipping hot broth from a metal cup. He lived alone in the forest now, far away from the cities and noise. No one ever came here, not in the middle of winter. That's why he almost dropped his cup. When he heard the knock, it wasn't loud. It was soft, weak, but it was there. One knock. Then another. Daryl stood up quickly, grabbing the shotgun he kept by the door. He opened it just a crack and peeked outside. For a moment, he saw nothing but the wall of snow. Then he saw her. Woman stood there in the snow, barely dressed in torn cloth and shaking hard. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer. Her hair was silver and full of ice. She wasn't human. And next to her was a small child, also trembling. Also not human. The woman looked up at him with tired, desperate eyes. "I don't want trouble," Daryl said sharply. "Who are you?" She tried to speak, but her lips were blue from the cold. Finally she said, "Please, I can warm your bed. Just let us stay the night. We have nowhere else to go." Daryl frowned. He had heard many strange things in the war, but this was different. He looked down at the child, whose teeth were chattering violently. Daryl lowered the shotgun and opened the door wider. "Come in," he said. "Hurry." They stumbled inside. The woman almost fell. Daryl caught her before she hit the floor. Her body was ice cold. The child leaned against his leg, clinging weakly. He shut the door and dropped more wood into the fire. "Sit close to the heat," he said. The woman moved near the fire and pulled the child into her arms. They wrapped together in silence, soaking up warmth like flowers in the sun. Daryl watched them. He had seen aliens before. In the war, he had fought many kinds, but this one. She looked different. Not like a soldier, not like a threat. More like someone running from something terrible. "Name?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer. He pointed to himself. "I'm Daryl. This is my cabin. You?" She looked at the fire, then said, "My name is Sira. This is my daughter, Linya." Linya coughed. Her chest wheezed. Daryl's face hardened. "Is she sick?" he asked. Sira nodded slowly. "Cold and hungry. We've been walking 3 days." "You're lucky you knocked when you did," he said. "Another hour and you both would have died out there." Sira lowered her eyes. "Maybe that would have been better." Daryl stared at her. He didn't like talk like that. He went to the corner of the cabin and opened a storage bin. He brought out 2 dry blankets and some canned soup. He handed her the soup. "Eat, both of you." Sira hesitated. "We have nothing to give." Daryl didn't care. "Don't need anything. I'm not starving." She took the soup and helped Linya sip it first. The little girl drank fast, as if every drop was treasure. Then Sira took a few careful sips herself. Daryl turned away to give them privacy, but his mind was spinning. Who were they running from? Why was she offering herself like that? Just to stay one night? What had happened to her? An hour later, Sira was half asleep, leaning against the fireplace. Linya was curled up beside her, breathing slow and steady. That's when Daryl noticed something strange. Sira's skin was glowing softly in the firelight. Not bright, just enough to notice. Like there was something alive under her skin. Energy, power. Daryl sat down slowly in his chair. His hand rested near his shotgun again. He didn't trust easily. But he also didn't like fear in a woman's eyes. Especially not when she had a child in her arms. He looked at them and whispered, "Whatever hell you came from, I hope it doesn't find you here." But deep down, he knew it might, because things that glow like that are always being hunted. Fire crackled gently in the small cabin, casting long shadows on the wooden walls. Outside, snow piled higher against the windows, but inside, Warmth slowly returned to the air. Daryl didn't sleep that night. He sat in his chair, eyes fixed on the alien woman and her daughter resting on the rug near the fire. The girl was now breathing more calmly, her small chest rising and falling in rhythm. But it was the mother, Sira, that kept Daryl's mind sharp and uneasy. Something about her didn't sit right, not in a dangerous way, but in a mystery he couldn't shake off. Her body still gave off that soft glow beneath the thin blanket he had given her. Faint pulses, almost like a heartbeat, except not from the chest. The light came from deep under her skin, along her spine, sometimes flashing near her shoulders or fingertips like fireflies caught under skin. Was it her biology, or something else? He stood slowly and approached the fireplace, careful not to wake. Then, Sira stirred slightly and pulled her daughter closer. Daryl crouched beside them and gently placed another log in the fire. That's when he noticed something. The side of Sira's neck just under her hairline had a deep, faded scar. It wasn't natural. It was the mark of a collar. A control chip implant, the kind used by slavers during the war. Daryl had seen them. He had removed them. They were illegal now. But only in places that followed human law. Daryl stepped back. His jaw tightened. She was a runaway, and not just any runaway, someone who had once been owned. That explained the way she moved, the way she flinched at loud sounds, the way she offered her body not as a woman, but as someone trained to beg, to survive. He felt a wave of quiet anger rise in his chest. Not at her, at whoever did this to her. Before returning to his chair, he pulled a second blanket from the shelf and laid it carefully over both of them. As he tucked it gently around the girl's shoulder, the child opened her eyes just a little. Her eyes were large, deep silver like her mother's, but innocent. "You human?" she whispered in a soft voice. Unsure. Daryl gave a small nod. "Yeah, name's Daryl." She stared at him a second longer, then said, "You not like others?" "Good," he said. "Don't plan to be." She smiled weakly. "Mom says we lucky." He paused. "Your mom's strong." The little girl looked at Sira and whispered something in her own alien language. Then she shut her eyes again, holding her mother's hand. By morning, Sira finally woke, sitting up slowly, her eyes cautious. "You stayed awake all night?" she asked. Daryl gave a small shrug. "Didn't want to miss the snowstorm. Real exciting stuff." She gave a tired smile, almost amused. "You don't trust me. Do you blame me?" "No," she said, rubbing her arms. "You're smart." "Where were you going?" he asked carefully. "This place isn't on any map. No one just walks by here." Sira looked down at her hands. "I wasn't going anywhere. Just away." "From who?" She hesitated. "From the ones who think they own me." "You were a slave?" She nodded slowly. "We escaped during a cargo transfer. I hid us in a waste container bound for Earth. Didn't know where we would land. We woke up in a junk field 2 towns south." Daryl stared at her. "You walked through this weather with a child?" Sira didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any word. Daryl walked to the cupboard and poured 2 cups of hot water. "You'll stay here," he said. "Few days. You both need it." Her eyes widened slightly. "You sure? We don't want to bring danger to you." "Danger comes whether you invite it or not," he said. "At least here, it'll meet a fight." Sira touched the blanket and looked away. "I don't have anything to give. I'm not asking." She looked back at him slowly, something different in her face this time. Not fear, not begging, just confusion. "Why would a human help me?" Daryl looked out the frosty window, then said softly, "Because I've seen monsters, and you're not one of them." For the first time, her eyes welled up. She turned away quickly, pretending to adjust the blanket. Later that day, while Linya was asleep, Sira sat by the fire and removed part of her torn sleeve. A glowing symbol was burned into the skin on her upper arm, a mark of ownership, now. Half faded. I can't hide this forever, she said. They'll find me. Then we'll make sure they regret it, Daryl said, voice like stone. She stared at him, lips parting like she wanted to say something else. But instead she just whispered, "Thank you." And that night, for the first time in a long time, she slept without shaking. The next morning was quiet, too quiet. Snow had stopped falling, but the sky was still heavy with gray clouds. Daryl stood outside, chopping wood in the crisp air while his mind stayed inside the cabin. He couldn't stop thinking about what Sierra told him the night before. Her voice still echoed in his mind. I can't hide this forever. They'll find me. He had seen fear before, in war, in civilians running from fire, in dying soldiers. But the fear in Sierra's eyes, it wasn't just fear of death. It was fear of returning to chains, to silence, to being someone else's property. He carried the firewood inside and found Sierra quietly folding the blanket they had used. Linya sat on the rug, trying to draw something with a broken piece of charcoal from the fireplace. What's that? Daryl asked, crouching beside her. Linya smiled and showed him the drawing. It was a crude but sweet picture, 3 stick figures holding hands under a warm sun. One tall, one with pointy ears, and one small in the middle. Daryl blinked. Is that supposed to be me? Yes, she said proudly. You big. He chuckled softly. Well, I guess I'll take that as a compliment. But his smile faded when he stood and saw Sierra staring at the wall, frozen. Sierra? He asked gently. She turned to him, holding something in her hand, a small silver disc. This was buried inside my skin, she said. The slavers put it there. It tracks heartbeat patterns and voice. But I think it stopped working when I crossed into the dead zones. Daryl took it carefully and studied it. You cut this out? She nodded. With a broken blade? When Linya was asleep, he looked at the raw skin under her collar. No med patch, no bandage. Just pain and determination. You're braver than most soldiers I knew, Daryl said. I'm just a mother, she replied. Nothing else matters now. Later that afternoon, as the fire warmed the room again, Daryl brought out a medkit and gently cleaned the area where the disc had been. As he worked, Sierra stayed quiet, until she suddenly pulled the back of her shirt up. At first, Daryl thought it was another wound, but then he saw it, a deep, complex symbol etched into her back. Not with ink, but burned into the skin, like a permanent brand dot. It was shaped like a claw wrapped around a planet. The mark of the Red Syndicate. Daryl's heart dropped. He had heard of them. Human authorities didn't talk much about the Syndicate because they feared them. They were black market kings, slavers, weapon smugglers. They owned hundreds of alien girls, trained them, and sold them like luxury items across the galaxy. And Sierra had that mark on her. They branded you? Daryl asked, voice low. Yes, she whispered. I was their property, their favorite. I escaped during a ship transfer. I stabbed the guard. Took my daughter, hid inside waste. I wasn't supposed to survive. Daryl didn't say anything for a moment. He looked into her eyes. There was no shame there, only pain. And fire. The kind that kept someone alive when everything else had been stolen. You did survive, he said. But they will come, she replied. Then let them come. Sierra looked at him like she was hearing something impossible. You'd risk your life for a stranger? No, Daryl said. For a mother. For a child. For someone who never got a choice. That night, Sierra insisted on helping with dinner. She cut vegetables while Daryl lit the small stove. Linya hummed quietly, sitting on the floor, holding a small toy Daryl had made from scrap wood. Dinner was simple stew and dry bread, but somehow it felt like a feast. Halfway through eating, Sierra looked up and said, In my world, sharing food means you've accepted someone into your home forever. Daryl looked at her across the table. Then I guess you're part of my home now, Sierra smiled softly. It wasn't wide. It wasn't bright. But it was real. After Linya fell asleep, Sierra stepped outside for air. Daryl followed. The forest was still. The stars above were clear. "They'll come soon," Sierra said again. "Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But when they track the broken signal, they'll send hunters." Daryl lit a cigarette and blew out smoke. "Then we better prepare. This cabin has more secrets than it looks, and I'm not as peaceful as I pretend to be." Sierra gave him a long look. "What were you before this?" "A soldier," he said. "Now I'm just trying to be human again." She nodded, then whispered something so low he almost didn't hear it. "You already are." They stood side by side in the cold, no longer just strangers. The glow on her skin shimmered gently in the moonlight. And far above them, a silent red light blinked once in orbit, then disappeared. They had been found. The night was quiet, but it felt wrong. Daryl had learned long ago during the war that silence wasn't always peace. Sometimes silence meant something was watching, waiting. He kept checking the sky. Inside the cabin, Sierra was asleep, curled around Linya like a shield. The fire had burned low, casting soft orange light on their sleeping forms. Daryl didn't want to wake them, but he couldn't sleep himself. Not with what Sierra told him about the Red Syndicate. Not after the faint red blink he had seen last night in the sky. He stepped outside again, rifle slung over his shoulder. The snow had hardened underfoot. Cold air cut into his skin like knives, but he didn't care. He scanned the treetops, the clouds, the stars. Then he saw it, a soft light, falling through the night sky. Too slow to be a shooting star. Too quiet to be thunder. It was a ship, sleek, black, no lights except one red flicker near its tail. It hovered above the tree line, silent as a whisper. Then it dropped lower until it disappeared behind the forest ridge. Daryl's heart thudded. They were here. He rushed inside and locked the door behind him. His voice was low, but urgent. "Sierra, wake up!" She opened her eyes immediately. She had been half awake, like a mother always is when danger lives close. "They found us?" she whispered. He nodded. "One scout ship, maybe more nearby. I don't know yet." Her eyes flashed with panic, then control. She shook Linya gently, whispering something in her language. The child woke and clung to her mother's arm. Daryl moved quickly, pulling back the rug and revealing the trapdoor under it. A small root cellar. Cramped, dark, but hidden and dry. "Down there," he said. "Both of you. Don't come out unless I say." Sierra hesitated. "What about you? I'll greet our guest." Before she climbed down, Sierra grabbed his hand. "Don't let them take her, please." "They won't," Daryl said. "I swear." He closed the trapdoor behind them and covered it with the rug. Then he waited. 30 minutes passed before there was a knock. Not soft like Sierra's had been. This one was heavy, sharp. It wasn't a knock of someone asking to come in. It was the sound of command. Daryl opened the door slowly. Standing firm with his rifle in hand, a tall figure stood there, covered head to toe in a black cloak. Red lines ran along its sleeves, glowing faintly. The face was hidden under a smooth, reflective visor. "Alien tech." "Evening," Daryl said, calm and cold. The figure tilted its head slightly, then spoke in perfect English, voice filtered through a synthetic translator. "We are searching for fugitives. A female of Class Zeta origin, and a child." Daryl didn't blink. "Haven't seen anyone. There are life readings here. 3 signatures. 1 is human. 2 are not. You calling me a liar?" The figure stepped forward. Daryl didn't move, but his grip on the rifle tightened. "May we search your cabin?" The figure asked. Daryl smiled, just a little. "Only if you've got a warrant signed by the president of Mars." "I was not requesting permission." Daryl raised his rifle slowly and pointed it straight at the figure's chest. "Then I'm not requesting you to leave." For a moment, the air grew heavier. The figure's hand twitched. Daryl's finger hovered over the trigger. Then, the figure stepped back. "We will return," it said. "With others." "You do that," Daryl replied. "And I'll have more surprises waiting." Without another word, the figure turned and walked back into the dark forest. The trees swallowed it whole. Daryl shut the door, locked it, then quickly uncovered the trapdoor and opened it. Sierra and Linya looked up, eyes wide. "They're gone," he said. "But they'll be back." "We have to run," Sierra whispered. "Now." "Running won't help anymore," Daryl said. "They've tagged this place. They'll come with more ships next time." Sierra held Linya tightly. "Then we'll die." "No," Daryl said firmly. "Not today. Maybe not ever." He walked to the back wall of the cabin and tapped a hidden panel. It slid open, revealing a dusty passage. Sierra's eyes widened. "You built this?" "Old habit from war days. Leads to a different ridge. I kept it secret, in case of trouble." She nodded. "Smart." Daryl looked at her. "We'll move before dawn. I know a place where no scanners reach, but it's a long journey. You sure you're ready for that?" Sierra didn't hesitate. "I'd walk through fire if it meant she stayed free." Daryl picked up his pack and loaded ammo into his belt. "Then we walk at first light." As the sky began to lighten with pale gray, they slipped out through the tunnel and into the cold wilderness. They didn't look back, because behind them, high above, a second ship was arriving. The cold bit harder the farther they walked. Daryl led the way through deep snow, cutting across forest paths no longer marked by maps. Sierra followed close behind, carrying Linya wrapped tightly against her chest. The little girl was quiet now too. Quiet for a child. Her wide eyes blinked slowly, tired from hunger and fear. They had left the cabin an hour before dawn through the hidden tunnel. The sky was turning blue now, but the danger wasn't behind them, it was in the sky, still circling like silent vultures. Daryl paused beside a frozen stream and motioned for Sierra to rest. 10 minutes. "No more," he said. Sierra nodded, sinking to her knees against a tree trunk. Linya stayed in her arms, half asleep. "I didn't know humans had hiding tunnels," she whispered. Daryl crouched beside them, checking the scanner he had strapped to his wrist. "Most don't, but soldiers learn to expect the worst." She looked at him carefully. "You still move like a soldier." "Old habits don't die," he said. "And what are we now?" She asked softly. Daryl looked at her. "Survivors." "That's better than soldiers." She gave a small, tired smile. But he could see the worry behind it. Sierra hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. She was running on instinct and hope, and both were fading fast. He opened a ration bar and handed it to her. "Split this with Linya." "You need it too," she said. "I'll eat later." They shared the food in silence. Then Daryl checked the scanner again. A faint red pulse blinked at the edge of the screen. "They're scanning," he said. "Low orbit sweep. We have maybe 30 minutes before they catch this zone." Sierra stood up at once. "Then we keep moving." They crossed into the lower valley just before noon. The terrain became harder. Rocks, ice, patches of thick frozen mud. Daryl helped Sierra across the steep spots, sometimes lifting Linya himself when the snow grew too deep. They didn't talk much. Words were wasted when breath was short and time was shorter. Sierra finally broke the silence. "I didn't mean to drag you into this." Daryl stopped and turned to face her. "You didn't. I walked in myself." She looked away. "You had a quiet life. Now you're running. Hunted." He stared at her. "A quiet life is useless when it ignores people who are crying for help." Sierra blinked fast. Her throat tightened. "Most people look away. I'm not most people." They moved again. By late afternoon, They reached the edge of a crumbled human outpost, an old fuel station from the war, buried in snow and silence. Rusted walls, broken antenna. Half a roof, but it was sheltered. Daryl led them inside and kicked debris aside to make a place for the fire. The walls blocked the wind, and the cold didn't bite as hard anymore. He sparked a small fire and wrapped Linya in a dry blanket from his pack. The child's color slowly returned, and her breathing became more steady. "Sleep," Daryl told her softly. "You're safe now." Sira sat beside him, watching the flames flicker. "You didn't ask about my people," she said after a while. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." She stared at the fire. "I'm from the Orshal colonies. We were peaceful. Artists, healers. But when the Syndicate found us, they saw us as rare and valuable. Our skin glows when touched. Our voices calm pain. They called us living luxury. They took thousands of us." Daryl felt his hands tighten into fists. Sira continued, "I was trained to serve, to smile, to obey. But when I gave birth to Linya, something changed. She gave me a reason to fight. And you escaped." "I escaped," she nodded. "But not without scars." She pulled her sleeve down to reveal a fresh cut on her arm. Daryl gently took her wrist and wrapped it in clean cloth. "They won't get you back. But what about you?" she asked. "If they capture us now, you'll be marked too." "I've been marked before," he said. "This time, I choose who I stand with." Silence fell again, a warmer kind. Not from fire, but from understanding. As night fell, snow began again. Soft at first, then heavier. Daryl stood and looked through the broken window. Red lights blinked faintly in the sky above the clouds. "They're still searching." Sira came beside him. "If we're caught, we won't be," he said. "But if we are, promise me something." He turned to her. "Take Linya and run. Leave me. I won't let them chain her like they chained me." Daryl stared at her. "No one's getting chained. Not while I'm breathing." Sira looked at him like she wanted to say something more. Instead, she stepped closer and said, "Thank you for choosing to care." Daryl didn't answer. He just nodded. But deep inside, he knew this journey wasn't just about escape anymore. It was becoming a fight worth living for. The snowstorm came. Fast that night. Winds howled through the broken roof of the old outpost, and the fire struggled to stay alive. Daryl had blocked the main doorway with heavy metal scraps, but it wasn't enough to stop the cold or what was coming from the sky. Sira held Linya tightly, her hands trembling, not from the cold but from fear. Her body glowed faintly again, a soft pulse of light under her skin. It only did that when she was scared, she had told Daryl. Daryl kept checking the scanner. The screen blinked red every few seconds. "They're closing in," he muttered. "2 ships, one to the north, one coming from the sky." Sira didn't speak. Her eyes stayed on Linya. Suddenly, there was a high-pitched hum above them. The air felt heavy, pressed down like a giant hand was squeezing the sky. Then came the beam of red light through the clouds, silent, slow, and steady. A search beam. "They found us," Daryl said. He grabbed his rifle and tossed Sira the second pack. "We can't run now, but we can fight." Sira's face turned pale. "You don't understand. These aren't just bounty hunters. They send screechers first, creatures with no mercy. They don't stop unless one of us dies." Daryl looked at her calm. "Good, because I don't plan on dying today." Suddenly, the roof above cracked. Something was landing. Daryl pulled Sira and Linya into the back chamber of the outpost, a room once used for fuel storage. He slammed the door shut and dropped a heavy pipe across it. "We hold here," he said. "If they come through, we stand together." Sira pressed Linya's head into her chest and whispered something in their native tongue. Daryl knelt by the wall and slid open a hidden panel. Inside were old weapons, rusty but working. He handed Sira a shock baton. "You ever use one of these?" he asked. She nodded slowly. I was trained in many things. Suddenly, a loud shriek echoed through the outpost. Not human. Not machine. Something in between. Linya screamed and buried her face in Sierra's arm. Stay here, Daryl said. I'll go first. He stepped out of the chamber into the main room. The fire had died. The red beam now shined directly through the broken roof. In it stood a creature, 7 feet tall. Long arms, no face, just a smooth black surface where I should be. Its skin shimmered like oil, and its hands had too many fingers. Daryl didn't hesitate. He fired. The bullet struck the creature's chest, but it barely moved. It hissed and then rushed forward, fast like lightning. Daryl rolled aside, slamming the butt of his rifle into its side. The creature screeched again and knocked over the metal barrel. The whole place shook. Sierra burst from the chamber, eyes glowing bright. The shot baton in her hand flashed with blue light as she stabbed it into the creature's back. The screecher howled louder this time and twisted, trying to grab her. Daryl jumped back into the fight, aiming for the neck. 1 shot, 2. The third pierced something important. The creature stumbled, fell to one knee, then collapsed with a cracking thud. Silenced. Daryl and Sierra breathed hard, standing over the body. But the silence didn't last. A voice came from above. Cold. Mechanical. Target located. Human interference confirmed. Prepare for retrieval. Daryl looked at Sierra. That wasn't the only one. Outside, the ship's engines roared to life again. They're going to blast this place, Sierra said, to cover their failure. We need to go now. They rushed to the rear of the outpost, where a rusted maintenance tunnel led into the old pipeline system. Daryl pried the hatch open and helped Sierra and Linya inside. Then he climbed in after them and sealed it shut. Inside, it was pitch black. Only Sierra's glowing skin lit the way forward. They crawled through narrow steel paths, crawling through dust and broken metal, their breathing loud in the silence. Linya coughed again. Mama, I'm scared. I know, baby, Sierra said. But he's with us. We'll be okay. Daryl led the way until they reached the end of the pipe. He kicked open the grate, and fresh air hit their faces. They had escaped. For now they lay on the cold ground, covered in mud and snow, staring at the red sky above. The outpost behind them exploded. The syndicate had wiped it clean. Sierra looked at Daryl. They'll never stop. Daryl nodded. Then we don't stop either. He looked at Linya, eyes wide, cheeks dirty, but still breathing. She's worth fighting for. Sierra whispered, so are you. They stood slowly and began walking again, deeper into the wilderness, deeper into the unknown. Now they weren't just running, they were resisting. They walked for 3 more days through the frozen wild. Every step was slow, every breath sharp like ice. Their clothes were soaked with cold sweat, and their boots cracked from the rough paths. But they didn't stop, because behind them, fire still burned in the sky where the syndicate ships had destroyed the outpost. And Daryl knew they'd be searching again, hunting, tracking. But he had one goal now, get Sierra and Linya to safety. They finally reached the mountain ridge Daryl had told her about. At the top was a cave entrance hidden behind tall rocks and thick frozen vines. No ship scanner could detect anything under this ridge. It was human territory long forgotten deep in what soldiers once called the blind zone. Wait here, Daryl said, and stepped inside first. After 10 long minutes, he returned. It's clear. We're safe for now. Sierra didn't speak. Her legs shook, her arms sore from carrying Linya. But she smiled a real smile, because for the first time in many days, no engines echoed above them. No red beams swept the trees. Just wind. Just cold. Just silence. Inside the cave, it was warmer than expected. Old human tech buried under rock still gave off gentle heat. Daryl turned on the hidden panels, and small lights flickered along the walls. An old energy cell still worked after all these years. Sira placed Linya down on the softest patch of ground. The child was fast asleep, her cheeks red, her little hands holding the wooden toy Daryl had carved for her back at the cabin. "She's strong," Daryl said, watching her sleep. "She is," Sira whispered. "But only because you helped her. Believe in kindness." Daryl looked at her. "You saved her long before I came. I just gave her a place to breathe." Sira sat down slowly and rested her back against the wall. For the first time since they met, her shoulders weren't tight with fear. Her eyes were soft. Her skin glowed gently in the dim cave light, no longer from panic but peace. "I used to think humans were cruel," she said quietly. "During my capture, they sold us. Some of them even watched for fun." Daryl nodded, shame in his eyes. "Some humans are monsters, but some are trying to make it right." "You made it right," she said. "For me, for her." He didn't reply. Instead, he knelt beside Linya and adjusted her blanket. She stirred a little and whispered in her sleep, "Papa." Sira's eyes filled with tears. "She calls you that now," she said softly, "even when she dreams." Daryl was silent for a long time. Then he whispered, "I'm okay with that." Sira reached out, took his hand, and pressed it against her cheek. Her skin was warm now, alive. "I offered you my body that first night, because I thought that's all I had left to give," she said. "But you gave me something I never expected." "What?" "Safety, respect, a future." Daryl leaned back, breathing deep. "You gave me a reason to fight again." She moved closer. "So, what do we do now?" He looked around the cave. "We stay low, build a small life, wait for the right moment. There's a group nearby, an old human ally colony. They don't care about race, species, or past. Just people who want peace. We'll reach them once things calm down. And after that?" Daryl looked at her. "We build something real, together." She smiled, brighter than he'd ever seen. The next morning, Sira stood outside the cave entrance, holding Linya in her arms. Snowflakes danced around them, but the child was laughing, giggling even. She reached down and picked up a handful of snow, trying to throw it at Daryl. "You missed," Daryl said with a grin. "Try again." Linya laughed and tried again. Sira watched them, her heart full. The man who once opened the door with a shotgun was now the same man lifting her daughter into the air, making her laugh through the cold. No chains, no cages, no fear. Just life. Later that night, when the stars returned and the forest was still, Sira laid beside Daryl and whispered, "I used to believe only escape could save me. And now?" he asked. "Now I know it was meeting you." He gently kissed her forehead. "We're not just surviving anymore, Sira. We're living." From that day forward, no matter how far the syndicate searched, they never found Sira or her daughter again, because what they were truly looking for wasn't just a fugitive. It was a family. And this family had finally found its home.